Good morning. My name is not Andrea Jenkins. My name is Council Vice President Lene Palmisano, but I'm going to call to order this regular meeting for Thursday, November 2nd, and ask the clerk to call the roll and verify the presence of a quorum, knowing that our Council President is just a couple minutes behind.
Councilmember Wansley.
Present.
Councilmember Johnson.
Present.
Councilmember Osman.
Present.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Councilmember Koski.
Present.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Present.
Councilmember Chavez.
Present.
Councilmember Ellison.
Here.
Councilmember Vitoff.
Present.
Councilmember Rainville.
Present.
Councilmember Goodman.
Present.
Vice President Palmisano.
Present.
President Jenkins is absent. There are 12 members present.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. Next, we have adoption of our agenda today. Colleagues, our agenda is before us, and I'll ask first if there are any amendments to the agenda. Nobody on speaker management? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adopt that agenda.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Johnson, seconded
Second.
by Councilmember Chavez. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vitoff.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes.
Thank you. The next item of business is acceptance of the minutes from the regular meeting of October 19th and the adjourned meeting of October 25th. May I have a motion to accept those minutes?
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vitoff.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries, and those minutes have been accepted. And finally, we have the referral of petitions, communications, reports to the proper committees. May I have that motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vitoff.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries, and those matters have been referred. The next order of business is reports from our standing committees, beginning with the report from our Budget Committee. And that report will be presented by the committee's chair, Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam President. The Budget Committee is sending forward 3 items for approval. Number 1 is appointed position in the Performance Management Innovation Department, the Deputy Director of Performance Management and Innovation. Number 2 is approval position in the Health Department, Director of Health Policy and Community Programs. And number 3 is appointed position in the Office of Community Safety, the Director of Community Safety Design and Implementation. I move approval of all of these Budget Committee reports. I also would like to just send out a reminder and let everybody know that our last public budget hearing is at 6:05 p.m. on Tuesday, December 5th.
Thank you, Councilmember Koski. And Councilmember Koski has moved that committee's report. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want a clarification. For the December 6th public hearing, Councilmember Koski, is that also still going to be related to board's estimation and taxation like last year, not just a general public hearing?
Oh, I'll defer to the clerk, but it's our Truth and Taxation hearing that evening, if that's what you're referring
Yes.
to. It's the Truth and Taxation hearing at 6:05 p.m. on December 5th.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vitoff.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries, and that report is adopted. The next committee report is the Business Inspections, Housing, and Zoning Committee, and that report will be presented by the committee's chair, Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam President. The Business Inspections, Housing, and Zoning Committee is bringing 17 items forward for approval this morning. Items 1 and 2 are liquor licenses. Item 3 is changes to our open-air motor vehicle parking lot ordinance. Item 4 is the Agra Affordable Housing Project financing, and item 5 is the Wadag Commons Affordable Housing Project financing. Item 6 is a certificate of appropriateness. This is granting an appeal by Lisa and Jim Rickers. Item 7 are the regular license approvals, and 8 are the liquor license renewals, and there's quite a few of those. Item number 9 is a reinstatement of a rental dwelling license. Item 10 is a commemorative street naming addition. Item number 11 are applications for our environmental grant funding round, the 2023 Brownfields grants, and 12 is the Livable Communities pre-development grants. Item number 13 is Minneapolis Homes financing. Item number 14 is agreeing to Hennepin County financial assistance for a project at 56th and Lindale Avenue South. Item 15 is extensions for Simpson Housing's Affordable Housing Trust Fund Award. Item 16 is changes to our homeownership program, and item 17 are changes to our owner-occupied rehab program. With that, I'll move all items 1 through 17 for approval this morning.
Thank you, Councilmember Goodman. Councilmember Goodman has moved that committee's report. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Any questions at all? Comments? All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye on all except number 2.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye on all except for number 2.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye on all except item 2.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye on all except item 2.
Councilmember Ellison.
No on item 2. Aye on the rest.
Councilmember Vita.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes on the report except for item number 2, which has 8 ayes and 5 nays.
That carries, and that report is adopted. Our next committee report is the Committee of the Whole, and that report will be presented by Council Vice President Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Committee of the Whole has 3 items to come before us today. The first is the anti-displacement eviction prevention direction to our city auditor. Item number 2 was a bit controversial. It was forwarded without recommendation. 2.1 is about the acquisition of 2633 Minnehaha for a future community safety center and 3rd Police Precinct. The second is about a legislative directive accordingly for 2633. Item number 2.3, Councilmember Chavez has a substitute for, as if you recall, this was considered an improper motion by our city attorney, and we moved it forward in good faith that he would work with the city attorneys to come up with something appropriate. He has, and he'll be hopefully called on first to explain what that substitute is. Item number 3 is the Government Structure Implementation Charter Amendment. This was our evening meeting with the Charter Commission directing staff to proceed with continuing to refine and finalize drafts of recommended charter amendments to be further considered next year by the Charter Commission, the City Council, the Mayor, by ordinance as allowed under state law. I will move all 3 of these for approval and suggest that perhaps Councilmember Chavez speaks next on his substitute, if that's all right with you, Madam Chair.
Council Vice President Palmisano has moved this committee's report and requested that Councilmember Chavez be able to speak to item number 2.3. I do have other council members in queue, so I just want to make sure that you're okay with that, Councilmember Koski,
Madam
Osmond, and
President.
Wansley.
If the body doesn't object, perhaps we could vote on items 1 and 3 and save 2 for a separate discussion. We have several items on number 2 at the dais, and so I think it'd be easier not to confuse the entire committee report to vote on 1 and 3, put 2 aside, and then deal with it.
That makes sense to me, Madam Chair. I can move items 1 and 3 first.
Council Vice President Palmisano has moved items 1 and 3 for consideration, and then we'll return to item number 2. If that's the will of this body, I will call on the clerk to call the roll.
So on approval of CAL report items 1 and 3, Councilmember Wansley.
Nay.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye. This is committee items 1 and 3, not 2.1 and 2.3.
Thank you. Okay. Aye.
Let me start again. On items 1 and 3, not counting item number 2, on the CAL report, Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond. Aye. Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vitaw.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
Those items carry, and we will return to item number 2. I will recognize Councilmember Chavez to talk about a substitute motion for item number 2.3.
Thank you, Council President Jenkins. I would like to make a substitute motion to this item, requesting the mayor to direct staff to conduct preliminary site investigation, due diligence, and design work for a community safety center at the property located at 3716 Cheatham Avenue South, and if the staff determines the property to be a feasible location for a community safety center, requesting the mayor to direct staff to submit a request for action to authorize acquisition of the property. I believe that there's a dire need for a centralized community safety center in the Third Precinct. 3716 Cheatham Avenue South is an area that will bring the community along, and I am committed to doing just that. Where they can be a part of this process to develop our comprehensive community safety system, where we can build this from the ground up, start fresh, and create a model for other precincts to follow. It is also a site that can build consensus in this body. This location is the most centralized and is accessible by transit, located by the light rail. Do we want to move on a site that can bring the community along, or go with a site that has so much apprehension? And I will always choose to go the community route. Over the past years, my residents have endured so much trauma. They watched the murder of George Floyd and created a sacred place at GFS. They saw our Lake Street corridor burst into flames, and subsequently they got abandoned. They had to fight for native rights at the Roof Depot site and saw a precinct burn before their eyes, all in Ward 9. I have learned a lot from this community that I proudly represent, and it's that it takes people that they trust to bring them along. I care about this community so much that I am proposing a pathway forward, which is what this body asked me to do at the last council meeting, despite the fact that my residents do not trust our police department. I would ask that you all see this as me extending an olive branch where we can all come together and build a future our residents deserve to live in. And with that, I'd like to just vote on my substitute motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Chavez. Councilmember Chavez has offered a substitute motion. It's labeled item 2.3. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a proper second. I see Councilmember Johnson in queue.
Thank you, Madam President. And while I don't support the substitute motion, I do want to express my gratitude to Councilmember Chavez for working on this site. I think there's a lot of merit in this particular site. This is one that I've had conversations with the property owners about as well. And frankly, if 2633 Minnehaha did not emerge as an option, I would be voting for this today, and I would want to move forward with this site at Cheatham today because it is centrally located. It is transit accessible. I think it offers a lot of value overall. I also think that the price difference, the timeline differences, now that 2633 is on the table, are just too great. And, you know, I feel like we have a lot of good details about this site at Cheatham. And so it's, yeah, I just, you know, appreciate you, Councilmember Chavez, and your willingness to stand up for a site and say, I think this is a site that could work. And I want to express that. And if 2633 was an option, I think this one would be it.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. And I did want to just take a moment to acknowledge that we've been joined by Mayor Frey. Welcome. Are there any other comments on the substitute motion 2.3? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll. Okay, you got it.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
No.
Councilmember Osmond.
No.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Nay.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vitaw.
No.
Councilmember Rainville.
No.
Councilmember Goodman.
No.
Vice President Palmisano.
No?
President Jenkins.
Nay.
There are 5 ayes and 8 nays.
That item fails.
Madam President, if I could then return back to item number 2 and move items number 2.1, which is the acquisition of 2633 Minnehaha, 2.2, which is the legislative directive for the Community Safety Center, and then also add in, I think this is appropriate, by Councilmembers Koski and Osmond, 2.3, which is their resolution that speaks mostly to what Commissioner Barnett was mentioning in Committee of the Whole on Tuesday. I could move items 2.1, 2.2, and this resolution by Councilmembers Koski and Osmond for approval altogether.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Palmisano has moved items 2.1, 2, and the resolution that was offered by Councilmember Koski and Osmond. I'm sorry, can we have just one conversation, please? Thank you. Do we have a second for that motion? Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam President. Councilmember Osmond and I, well, it's already been moved, but we moved to approve the Committee of the Whole item 2.1 and authorizing the acquisition of 2633 Minnehaha Avenue, item 2.2, the legislative directive by Councilmember Wansley, and this resolution which expresses the city's commitments regarding the Community Safety Center. The motion and resolution are printed before you. We had the opportunity to speak about the acquisition of 2633 Minnehaha Avenue and the legislative directive earlier this week, so I'll be focusing my remarks on the resolution. At the Committee of the Whole meeting, the city's commitments regarding the Community Safety Center were questioned, and to be fair, we've had memos, reports, presentations, and discussions, but we haven't formally made any commitments. So with this resolution, we are doing exactly that. We're making commitments regarding the Community Safety Center. All of us, the mayor, the city council, city staff, have shared interest in advancing the work of developing and providing a broad range of community safety strategies and to building out a spectrum of community safety services that meet the unique needs of residents across the city. And all of us agree that the development of a community safety center is paramount in advancing community safety work. This resolution tells the community that we are committed to the development of a community safety center at 2633 Minnehaha Avenue, and that the community safety center will serve as a reflection of the city's community safety mission, vision, and values, as a reflection of the city's robust, comprehensive community safety ecosystem. We are committed to inform and involve the community in further development of the Community Safety Center's mission, vision, values, and design. We are committed to ensuring that the development of the Community Safety Center is completed in a cost-effective and time-effective manner. And we are committed to hosting the ceremonial grand opening of the Community Safety Center when the Community Safety Center is complete in its entirety. I'd like to thank Councilmember Osmond for working with me to find a way for us to move forward together. And I'd like to welcome any council members to sign on as co-authors to this resolution so that we can all move forward together. I look forward to making our hopes and dreams and the community's hopes and dreams of a community safety center become a reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Koski, and I would certainly be willing to be a co-author on that resolution. Next in queue is Councilmember Osman.
Thank you so much, Council President, and I want to thank Councilmember Koski for her work on this. As you know, that I have expressed strong pushback on 2633 a few days ago by not making it very clear that we are committed on this safety center we talk about. It's important for me to express that for the development of this property, how important it is to have the community safety center. We're trying to go back to the community and tell them we're opening a public safety center, as we call, and moving forward and make sure that vision becomes reality. But we have to be very clear. So hopefully this motion, all of us, including the mayor's office and administration, makes that commitment that this center will be, on opening day, will have both community safety center component and the Third Precinct facility component. And I would say that this is probably one of the best locations that we have found so far, 2633. It's cheaper. It's right in the middle of Third Precinct boundaries. And again, thank you, Councilmember Koski, and the leadership who I've been having a conversation with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Osman. And next is in queue, if folks are looking at our speaker management, it says Councilmember Vital, but I will recognize Mayor Frey to speak to this item.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Councilmember Vital, for adding my name. This day is really a long time in the making. Before even seated as the interim commissioner, I remember talking with Lee Sheehy about this idea of a community safety center. We have already committed as a body to moving forward with alternatives to policing, and this indeed would take it one step further to locate them within the same building, to be able to coordinate in full on a daily basis in the same physical space. The whole goal is to meet the gaps, to bridge divides, and to provide the comprehensive service that we all talk about. And it's humbling, and it should inspire people that there is so much momentum around this idea, from police to violence prevention to community partners. We have truly before us an opportunity to do things differently in a way that honors this new system of government and OCS and this comprehensive approach that every one of us can agree upon. And then working closely with cabinet and city leadership, we formalized the mission, the vision, the values, the underpinning community safety center concept would have in an October 13th memo, which was delivered to you as a supporting document and indeed part of and attached to the RCA that you ultimately received. And then shortly after swearing in, I sat down with Commissioner Barnett to discuss the concept. I think this is just his third day on the job on October 25th, and he outlined his plans for the safety center, for the design and implementation. Of course, not every single detail can be met at this moment because the design still needs to take place, the community still needs to get engaged, and of course people need to be brought along with the vision itself. That memo was updated on October 27th to this body with this site 2633. And we again featured the safety center concept in the memo itself. This is an area where we all can agree to agree. This is an area where we all can be united. I don't think there is a single council member on this body. There's not a single person working in my administration that doesn't support moving forward with a safety center. Let's get this big vision done. Additionally, 2633 is the right site to do it on, and I appreciate the deliberation and I appreciate the decision that I hope we are about to make. 2633 is both tens of millions of dollars less expensive than the alternative that has been proposed. These are tens of millions of dollars that we can use to quite simply help people. tens of millions of dollars that we can use to make our government service stronger to the people that we represent. This would be money well saved. It will also be money well spent if we choose the right outlet for it. Additionally, it would be years faster than the alternatives, providing a space both for police that have been operating out of a shoddy location downtown for far too long, and it would give a new location for safety beyond policing services. Again, I thank you, Council, for the unity in this vote. I thank you for the deliberation, and I hope to move forward together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Frey. Next in queue is Councilmember Wansley.
Madam President, I wanted to see if leadership was amenable if we could actually take 2.1, 2.2, and the Koski-Osmond motion up separately for separate votes.
That Councilmember Wansley has requested to take separate votes on items 2.1, 2.2, and then the Osmond-Koski resolution. I don't see anything wrong with that if it's the will of this body. And if that's the case, we will take up those votes separately. Thank you, Councilmember Wansley. Next in queue is Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also would like to add my name as an author, as you did, to this Community Safety Center resolution. I appreciate that everything in this resolution is something that Commissioner Barnett and before him Commissioner Sheehy and the mayor have already committed to and have been working on. I trust Commissioner Barnett, formerly a judge, chooses his words specifically and carefully in the commitments that he's made to us, and this is our way to write them down and codify that as a city council. So thank you for taking the time and effort to do so, to my colleagues, and I'd be happy to also add my name. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, would like to be a co-author on this, and I will be voting for this out of the respect I have for the citizens of the Third Precinct who deserve a precinct in their area, in their community, out of respect for the noble officers of the Minneapolis Police Department who deserve a facility to work out of, as do all employees of the city, and out of respect for Commissioner Barnett in his work in the community, his vision that he has in carrying out Dr. Octatelli's report on the safe and thriving communities. And I have full faith in our city staff. I see our director, Barbara, I'm sorry, I forget your exact title, but I see you there, and I know that you will take this to heart and carry this out in an expedited fashion to fulfill the hopes and dreams of Councilmember Osmond. And with that, I again want to state that I believe in you, Commissioner Barnett, and I believe in your community outreach effort will be very successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rainville. Next in queue is Councilmember Payne.
Thank you, Madam President. We have a responsibility on this dais to represent our community as best as we can. And I really want to try to represent the pain of a large part of our city, the pain of watching George Floyd be murdered, and the pain of watching the Third Precinct burn. And we talk a lot about healing, and I don't know what steps we've actually taken yet to heal when it comes to the trauma that we all experienced. And the fact of the matter is, we don't have a lot of credibility with our community when it comes to moving forward. We don't have a lot of trust in our community when it comes to moving forward. I too share a vision around a comprehensive safety center. I don't know that this institution has the capacity to pull that off. I don't know that this building isn't going to become just another fortress in our city. I would like to think that we have that capacity. I would like to think that we're ready to do that. But we really haven't demonstrated our capacity to do that yet. And I've heard comments reducing this decision down to merely another real estate transaction. That erases a lot of humanity and a lot of trauma that we've all experienced. And in my role representing the voice of our community, at least my community in Ward 1, I need to give pause to the fact that we have not addressed that trauma. And I want to commend Councilmember Chavez for providing us a roadmap to start that process. And it is my intention to help our community heal. It is my intention to bring our community along. And the way that this real estate deal has come together does not do that. And so I just needed to share that perspective as we move forward on this vote. Thank you.
Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I just wanted to get clarification. When we do the items separately, can we still do discussion on them separately, or we're just doing votes?
Can we do discussion now?
That's what I'm asking for clarification. I wasn't
We
sure.
can do discussion right now.
I think, Madam President, just if we can pause, the clerks can reset the speaker management queue, which not only tracks speakers but does assign their speaking time. And so, to Councilmember Wansley's point, if we can just pause, then the clerks can reset speaker management for each of those items, and we can start with 2.1.
Thank you.
I'm not sure which item you want to discuss, Councilmember Wansley.
I believe the body agreed that we would take up the items individually, and we usually do discussion and, vote on them separately. So that was the clarification that it seems like the clerks confirmed.
So we
are now on item 2.1. I will ask the clerk to
we're ready.
Call the roll if there is no discussion. I'm not clear on what the
Madam President, on speaker management, the clerks have just retitled it as CAL item 2.1. It had been all three of the items because that's how it was moved. As you know, under the rules, speaker time is allocated based on the number of speeches that council members are allowed. So what Councilmember Wansley is doing, I believe, is asking us to clear the queue and speak on each item individually so that the time allotted to council members reflects the items that are being voted on.
All right, I see the queue is being cleared now. Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you so much for that clarification. First, I just want to name, Ward 2 residents as well as Third Precinct residents absolutely want a comprehensive safety system, and they want spaces that advances that vision, spaces where you can receive victim services and participate in healing circles, where you can bring a low-level conflict and help address it before it escalates, where young people who are struggling with mental health or a sense of purpose can come and get involved in healthy diversionary activities. That is actually what is laid out in the Safe and Thriving Communities report. And that's what I'm hoping we're aiming for. And it would be absolutely historic for the city of Minneapolis to invest in this. And I do want this model, and many of my constituents want this model in Ward 2. But I want to reiterate, Ward 2 residents want a thoughtfully planned out community safety center that will offer a plethora of preventative, responsive, and restorative safety services to Third Precinct residents. What they do not want is a Third Precinct that may or may not include a food pantry. That is not the model that my constituents are interested in advancing. And unfortunately, on Tuesday, Council learned that the administration's true community safety proposal really boils down to putting the Third Precinct police into the 2633 Minnehaha site. It was also troubling to see our new OCS leadership couldn't give council a guaranteed commitment that it would actually integrate other alternative safety services like our beloved BCR program, mental health responders, youth diversion programs, or restorative and victim services those were not guaranteed to be integrated once the police are moved in. And that is actually not surprising because I do know the mayor's original proposal for this was a standard precinct. And it only switched to language around the safety center when there was pushback around returning to the status quo. But after Tuesday's conversation, it's clear that a new name is nothing more than a rebrand. And the administration actually has zero intention of doing anything differently from the status quo of policing. That brought us Derek Chauvin and many more, and I'm also the only one speaking. At Cal, I also heard the argument that council and the public should essentially trust that if we acquire this building and we move the police in, all the other services will come later. And like Councilmember Payne highlighted, I'm actually glad that we're talking about trust. Because also, as Councilmember Payne mentioned on Tuesday, trust is built when, you say you're going to do something and then you follow through. And my residents have been very vocal about the lack of trust that they have in the city after promising truth and reconciliation and not doing it, promising police reform and not doing it, promising investments into alternative services and not doing it. This distrust is inflamed every single time the city makes a false promise. And people do not trust the city to follow through on their promises right now, and they are right to not trust us. And I'm glad Councilmember Osmond and Koski brought forth this symbolic resolution that we have in front of us, which is fine, but ultimately it will result in another false promise if we don't have a specific plan behind it. And residents are asking for a serious, specific, timely plan for a comprehensive safety system and center. And that's the right thing to be demanding, because without a serious plan, all the preventative, diversionary, restorative, and alternative response programs will fall by the wayside. And that's not acceptable for Third Precinct residents. And we can't go backwards to a police-only system. MPD, our officers even understand this themselves, and they support a comprehensive system. They know that over-reliance on policing is not good for anyone. Police are applauding programs like the Behavior Crisis Response Team, and they're also recognizing that there's a significant benefit they receive from having calls that they usually respond to be diverted from their workload to other qualified experts and personnel to deal with those safety concerns. Additionally, since 2019, the Capital Long Range Investment Committee has shared that they can't make informed decisions about capital investments for precinct buildings without strategic policy direction on future public safety initiatives and our plans. But for years, the city has sidestepped these questions. All other investments into buildings or infrastructure projects that are brought to the clique and to council require detailed plans and an explanation of how this fits into the larger picture of our strategic goals. And this project should not be an exception to that practice. What is also troubling is that...
Thank you, Councilmember. Your time has expired.
Oh, I'll just get back in queue. Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam President. I first want to thank Barbara O'Brien on this. She has put in so much work and trying to find a site over the years. I know it's been extremely stressful, and she's worked so hard at it, and there's been lots of twists and turns. And so with any site like this, there's a lot of people behind this work, and she has continued to work diligently and doing everything asked of her, moving in one direction and then to another. And so, Barbara, I see you, and I appreciate you, and I thank you. You will work on not just this, but so many different projects across our city, and you are appreciated. Thank you. There's a lot of division on this council and between the council and the mayor, and I want to take a moment to recognize something. We wouldn't be here today with, of all the options we've talked about over months, the cheapest, the fastest site, if not for the work of this body in trying to turn over every stone, and if not for the work of the mayor in calling for any option that could come in at a lower cost or a faster timeline. And I think that deserves to be recognized, and that the council and the mayor should get credit for that. It oftentimes is a messy public process There's a lot of pressure. There was a lot of hand-wringing over how we got to this point today, but we're getting a better result because of it. And that's the democratic process, and I think that's a great thing. I also want to say that this is more than just a transaction. We all know that MPD needs a lot of work. And we've got a new commissioner for that, a chief, the DOJ, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights. We've got reforms that have been implemented since and will continue to be. And it's been a conversation up here on this dais where we've all been pushing, implementing, and supporting new programs such as our mental health responders as well over these past several years. But our communities and our constituents also need police service in responding to emergencies. And not moving forward or not advancing a precinct within the geographical boundaries of the Third Precinct impacts service. It impacts service and it impacts safety. And our employees, they deserve a proper facility to work out of as well. Yes, there are details still to figure out around a community safety center, but this is the start of that process for designing and fitting this space, and the council has tools available, leverage, to see that through. And I encourage my colleagues to continue pushing, to continue working to influence this process to get us a better outcome so that this truly can be a new model of public safety starting in the Third Precinct that can be applied across our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Next in queue is Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, just wanted to thank Director O'Brien for her work on this. This has been a lot of time consumed, as this is coming up on my second year on the council, and we've always had conversations about this. So I want to thank you so much, Director O'Brien, for this work. And also, I just wanted to speak a little bit about the comments that have been made, because I don't see why we're divided on this. I really think that this is an opportunity for all of us to work towards a goal that is going to satisfy the people of the Third Precinct. I can't speak to what others get in emails or have in conversations, but all the conversations and the correspondence that I've received is from folks saying they feel like they haven't been heard about the Third Precinct and they want a Third Precinct in the Third Precinct. All the correspondence that I've received from people is bringing back a precinct is how we begin to build trust. And so I can't speak to others, but I know as leaders, as folks who were elected, all 14 with the mayor were elected to be leaders in this city and to make some hard decisions. They don't always feel good, but that is a part of the job. And this may not feel good, but it's the right thing to do. The people of the Third Precinct deserve a precinct. They deserve a safety center also, but they deserve a precinct. And, the other day I spoke to a safe space and a calm space for our officers to go to. It is important that they have this. That is a big part of reform. I can't imagine. I've been in several traumatic incidents in my life, and I can't imagine waking up, going to work, knowing that I might be entering into a full work day of trauma and not having somewhere to go and decompress after. Our officers deserve that. Our officers deserve a shower because sometimes they show up to blood on the scene. Our officers deserve somewhere to go. Our community deserves for our officers to be well when they show up every day to serve. This has gotten out of control. It's not about fighting MPD. It's about supporting the people in the Third Precinct who want this. It really is heartbreaking to hear us fighting over this. This is not the way to go. We are leaders. People are watching.
My mother called me this morning and said, you know, you got a hard decision on your hands today. I hope all of you do the right thing. I lived in that precinct for years, and I've had so many people. I want to thank my team because we've spent so much time listening to people from the Third Precinct about this. It's not okay, colleagues. We can do better. And yes, people have suffered trauma, but it's our job to guide them out of it. It's our job to make it better for the people of this city. In my own personal opinion, you're not a leader if you allow folks to live in trauma. It is our job to make it better. It's our job to be better so we can lead them out of it. The people of Minneapolis deserve more than watching us make this a personal and political issue. We can do better. We have a solution. I really hope that every single person up here supports this solution. It's time. We deserve more than this. Let's do this. Let's show them. We're leaders. We got them. It's not us against anybody. It's us together. This is an opportunity for us to be together. We've suffered enough. Let's show that we can do something together for the good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vitow. Next in queue is Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam President. I do want to thank all my colleagues for the discussion that we've been having. And, you know, so much of everything that we do here requires a tremendous amount of work, whether I agree with it, whether, you know, other members agree with it. And so I want to join the chorus of my colleagues thanking Director O'Brien for all the work that you've done on this. It's a tremendous lift. Absolutely. And as you can see, people have strong feelings about how we go about this, but none of that is a reflection of your work. You've done tremendous work, and I just want you to know that. Thank you. I see why there's a divide. You know, it makes sense to me. I see where the divide is because we've got folks in our community who also feel really conflicted about how we're providing this city service. And we have a long legacy of this city service not being executed at the standard that our residents deserve it. I'll never forget seeing some of the follow-up articles in the wake of George Floyd's murder. One was about corruption coming out of the Third Precinct and said that it had a legacy of being the most corrupt precinct in the city. The discussion that we're having here, at least to my ears, when I hear especially Councilmember Chavez sort of proposing what he thinks would be a solution in his community, is not anybody looking to execute a personal vendetta against one of our city services, but I think it's about whose humanity gets centered. And as I'm listening, a lot of arguments make sense to me, a lot of them, and I don't want to demonize any of my colleagues, but I just want to say I think that the divide is about whose humanity gets centered and at what pace do we go, right? Obviously, our employees deserve a place to work, but we also have to understand what has been the quality, as I spoke to just a few seconds ago, what has been the quality of that service. That's what we don't have buy-in on. That's what a lot of community members are skeptical of. And so, yes, I've also heard folks who say, build it by any means, as fast as possible. That's all we need. But I've heard a lot of folks also saying, we do not trust that we're going to get the best city service. And it's not just about whether or not we want there to be a community safety center. We also have to ask, if culture change isn't happening or if it's not believed to be happening, and I hope that it is, but if it's not, there are the other services that we would want to put in this building also get to opt out. So without that vision, without laying it forward, we could be setting ourselves up to have a precinct in one portion of the building and the other portion of the building empty indefinitely, because it's not just a matter of what we want to put in there. It's whether other services want to be co-located in a station like that as well. So I think where the divide is about pace. and it's about who's been centered in this conversation. I don't know that, folks like George Floyd and what he experienced, folks like Darnella Frazier, I could name all the witnesses who were there. I don't know that their experience has been centered in this decision, and I think that's where my opposition lands. It's not that we never want to see a precinct built. It's not that there is no right time, but I do think that of all the questions, all the outstanding questions that community might have about the kind of service that they're going to be opting into, I don't think we've answered all those questions. And so that's all I've got. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to thank Councilmember Vitoff for your wise remarks and the passion that you bring to this job. Thank you so much. This is the opportunity to heal, colleagues, and that's what leadership is. We talk about why we ran for office, why we were elected. We were elected because people saw us as leaders. This vote will show the leadership that we hold within each and one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Rainville. Next in queue is Council Vice President Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. I just think that we all up here owe thanks and appreciation to the Property and Finance Services team. Thank you, Director O'Brien, Matt Hannon. Thank you for being in continuous real estate looking for years here. It is only because you've stayed in that constant mode of making this a top priority that we were able to come up with this opportunity, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Next in queue is Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say thank you, Councilmember Ellison, for your comments, because I do think going into this decision, leadership is recognizing about centering the oppressed, those who've been on the opposite side of justice. And I think this is a critical moment where many of us on this dais do not want to, 10 years from now, be listed in another MDHR or DOJ investigative report for rubber stamping decisions that did not lead to accountability, that did not lead to transformation, that did not lead to the advancement of a new model around comprehensive safety, that didn't just center policing. That is not the goal that I came into this office with, and I do hope many of you have that goal. And it's decisions like this that's a test of whether or not we are looking to meet that goal. And when we're constantly saying all the other things that our residents want, BCR, mental health services, youth diversionary programs, those can come later, but less centered officers that still have a lot of work. And I don't want to even just emphasize the work, but also are going to have a lot of support, tens of millions of dollars supporting them to get into compliance with 2 consent decrees, to have them finally do some of that culture shift internally to lead them away from being one of the most racist, violent police departments in the United States right now. That is the work that needs to happen for our officers. And many of our residents are not seeing that. And I think if we really want to do our due diligence and pursue a new model of community safety or comprehensive public safety, and then have our assets like buildings reflect that, that work has to happen. And I get it doesn't fit people's timelines, but if that work is not transpiring, you're not going to earn a rubber stamp by the community who do not want to be in a predicament of what happened in May 2020 that I remember vividly, of seeing Third Precinct officers on top of the building shooting munitions and tear gas at folks on the ground, strollers, people being tear gassed for the first time in their lives, or having to rewatch George Floyd be strangled to death for almost 9 minutes. And ever since those moments, they have not seen a steady and consistent course of action from the city to remediate those harms, especially on public safety side. They've seen us constantly rubber stamp symbolic gestures, but there has not been actual deliverables that has been provided to them. So this is a moment of actual leadership where are we endorsing the status quo because we don't want to do the actual hard work of truth and reconciliation. We don't want to have to give our residents apology for putting them through one of the most traumatic moments in their lives. Many of them have long-standing PTSD. Many of them haven't been able to come back into East Lake Street and rebuild their businesses. That is not what I'm here to replicate. That is not what I want in an investigative report or any type of report of what happened 10 years from now in our public safety system, of being just complicit and allowing the same old to happen that essentially allowed George Floyd to be killed 3 years ago. So I am absolutely taking this decision so serious and thinking of where do we want to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and hoping that at least by then we can actually point to something that said we got it right. We did our due diligence and honored the memory of George Floyd and so many others that were taken at the hands of our racist and violent police department. We did what we needed to get it right and make sure that their lives were not taken in vain. That is what's on the table in front of us, and why I will not be supporting this option. But I absolutely look forward to working with every single one of you, also you, Mayor Frey, towards realizing the community safety side that does have that comprehensive component. It has to. And if it doesn't, then we're at a different crossroads. But that is the vision that I think many of us are willing and ready to sign up for in advance, and that we're more than welcome to put in Ward 2. So I look forward to the coming months and building that out. So again, in 10 years, we're not in a predicament where we're dealing with another George Floyd.
Your time has expired. Councilmember Chugtai.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll start with just lifting up and appreciating the colleagues sitting on this dais today that represent the Third Precinct. You all have shown us in public in big ways, and also in private, in briefings, how seriously you're taking this, how much you're trying to work together, how much you're trying to honor where the residents you represent are and what they need and how to move forward. And I know and I see that it's really hard. So just thank you for your leadership, for your courage, for your vision, and for continuing to bring us along and continuing to center your constituents in this work. Also, a lot of gratitude to Barbara O'Brien, Director Barbara O'Brien, for your work. I know it's been really difficult, but thank you for continuing to stick through it with us. And then, I've been reflecting on the places where we agree in discussion here today, but throughout conversations on this issue for the last few weeks and months. And I think the greatest place of alignment and agreement among all of us is that this new space needs to have integrated services. It needs to represent the vision of holistic public safety that we've been talking about, especially now over the last couple of years. And I think it's important to hold on to the places where we agree. We are, and then, but I've also, I have a lot of concerns or pause or hesitation. The first of which being that at this 2633 site, we're talking about an open date that is 1 to 1.5 years from now. And for context, it took the city almost 3 years to do the first round of engagement on the Third Precinct. Our new commissioner, Barnett, on Tuesday was so clear that engagement really needed to inform the services that are going to be in this space,
And I really support that 100%. I think that is how we need to move forward. So much has moved so quickly on this issue. And until recently, we weren't, it's a recent change that this building is now called a community safety center. I think that's a very welcome change and a really big deal. And then, on Tuesday, we learned that it may be a few years before we see an integrated community safety center. And I think, that's a part of the need to conduct community engagement. But, if a building is opening a year and a half from now and we haven't made a plan to even do the community engagement, much less figured out how it's going to happen and how much it's going to cost and who we're exactly talking about, and learn from the mistakes of the last round of community engagement on this issue, I don't see how that work is turned around any faster than it was last time. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope it is something that we move quickly on. But even then, like the commissioner pointed this out on Tuesday, we might be talking about, entering into contracts with external organizations. We might be talking about figuring out how much space we actually need in the third, or in this new building, and different services that community tells us they really need in that space. Needing special space or equipment or other considerations that we haven't even thought of yet. And I just remember when we were talking about co-location, how much more money it would have cost for us to add a floor to the existing, or to the new First Precinct building. And I don't know, it seems to me like we are more concerned right now with having some sort of finality to this issue than with making smart and right and thoughtful decisions that we are going to have to live with, and our community is going to have to live with for decades out. And I don't know. I see that this is how we're going to be moving forward today. I sincerely hope that we expedite community engagement. I sincerely hope that we figure out how we're going to make sure that integrated services are a part of this building on day one. But I think it's real and legitimate and valid to be concerned that we are looking at this through rose-colored glasses and saying everything is going to be perfect. We're going to figure out engagement. We're going to figure out exactly who's going to be in that space, and everybody is going to be in this new building on day one. And I guess I don't have a ton of hope for that. The last quick thing I think I wanted to just mention is healing is not a building. It's not. Healing is getting in right relationship with community. It's earning trust from residents. It is being realistic and honest and clear with them about what they can expect from us. It's being good stewards of residents' money, their needs, their hopes, their concerns and fears. And I just want to be clear that I think it's a real shame to simplify healing down to a physical building rather than being honest about how complicated that is.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Osmond.
Council President, thank you so much. I understand the concern and hesitation of some of my colleagues. This is not an easy decision for anyone. This holistic public vision of public safety we talked about, it's very tough to get there. We will have to get there, and I understand that one thing is fact, is that if we don't take the first step, we're never going to get there. So this is, the way I see it, this is the first step of getting that healing, that work that we talk about, that holistic vision we have. hesitation is real. The concerns are real. But we have to move forward sometimes, and we have to make sure that all of us are part of this work. I'm willing and I'm committed to work with each and every one of you in the leadership and administration to make this holistic public safety vision we have a reality. And that starts with the community that I represent. That starts with every community that live in Third Precinct. I'm voting today because I want to take that first step of getting there. And I'm voting today because I heard the commitment from the mayor's office, from the administration, from all of you for this resolution. If we vote on that, we will have that public safety center on this building. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Osmond. I did put myself in queue. I just wanted to thank the Director O'Brien and her team for their tremendous efforts throughout this process, as well as, other property services conundrums that we have in our city right now, including this entire floor moving to a whole new location next year while this place is being remodeled. And we understand and know that property service team is working on that project as well. We've looked at a number of locations over a number of years. Certainly a building didn't cause the problems that we have. It's the people inside of the building. And so consequently, this site can't be the healing, as people have so rightly noted. It will be a beginning step, as Councilmember Osmond stated, to moving forward. Opposition is just not progress. We have to move forward. There are no guarantees in life. We have to do the work. Building that trust is on each and every one of us. There is no one person that is in charge of that. That is all of our responsibility. And so I'm supporting this action today and raising my hand to do the work to rebuild that trust. And seeing no further discussion, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
This is a vote on the item 2.1 under Cal. This is the approval of acquisition of 2633 Minnehaha Avenue for a future community safety center, Third Police Precinct Facility Project. Councilmember Wansley.
Nay.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Nay.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shabtai.
No.
Councilmember Chavez.
No.
Councilmember Ellison.
No.
Councilmember Vita.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes and 5 nays.
That carries, and item 2.1 is adopted. Next, we are discussing the legislative directive, which is item 2.2, requesting a comprehensive overview of how the proposed community safety center and service delivery model will contribute to the implementation of the safe and thriving community service continuum model, a list of specific community safety functions to be co-located with the Third Precinct at 2633 Minnehaha, and information about the proposed development of a community safety center. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
On item 2.2, Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shabtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vitoff.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries, and that item is adopted. Lastly, we have the resolution offered by Councilmember Koski and Council members Koski and Osmond, which several committee members, including Council Vice President, Councilmember Rainville, and I'm not sure if others wanted to be included as co-authors.
I captured yourself as well, Council President, Council
Myself.
President, Council Vice President, and Councilmember Rainville.
Yes. Is there any discussion, Councilmember Koski?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to comment again. I know I spoke about this already, but throughout this discussion, I've heard from colleagues. We've used the word hope many times. I've heard us say, I hope this works. I hope I'm not wrong, that I'm not sitting here in years to come and seeing something that does not come to fruition. And I believe hope comes from us. I'm going to say that again. It comes from us, all of us, every single one of us. And it comes from us to lead and to move us forward. And this is a step to earn that trust. By putting this stake in the ground, we are publicly committing to develop a community safety center that supports our residents. And I just want to repeat again a couple key highlights from this resolution. We are committed to the development of a community safety center at 2633 Minnehaha Avenue, and that the community safety center will serve as a reflection of the city's community safety mission, vision, and values, as a reflection of the city's robust, comprehensive community safety ecosystem. We are committed to inform and involve the community in further development of the Community Safety Center's mission, vision, values, and the design. I hope, because I know this hope comes from every single one of us, I know that we can commit to this together as colleagues, and we together can lead to move us forward to make sure that our public safety ecosystem is what our residents need and what they want.
Thank you, Councilmember Koski. Next in queue is Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd love to be added as a co-author and just want to express my gratitude to Councilmember Koski and to Councilmember Osmond for their leadership on this.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. I put myself in queue just to have a quick word. You mentioned the powerful word hope, Councilmember Koski, and it just prompted me to reflect a little bit of, my ancestors, enslaved Africans, all they had was hope. That was it. Hope that we can see a brighter future. And they fought for that brighter future. In 2008, we ran an entire campaign based on hope and change. Hope is an essential element of how we continue to move forward as a community. So I just wanted to just thank you for highlighting that phrase. And while we can't solely rely on hope, hope has to be coupled with active work, collaborative work, and effective work. And we all have to do that together. Clerk, please call the roll on the resolution offered by Councilmember Koski and Osmond, now titled as item 2.4.
Councilmember Wansley.
Abstain.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shabtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vita.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 12 ayes and 1 abstention.
That item carries, and that completes the Committee of the Whole report. And that report in its entirety is now adopted. The next item on our agenda is the Intergovernmental Relations Committee. The report will be presented by its chair, Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you, Madam President. The IGR Committee is bringing forward one item for approval, a Nicollet Mall legislative directive. We are approving a directive requesting information and data related to the process of converting Nicollet Mall to a pedestrian, bicycle, and non-motorized vehicle public plaza, and to initiate discussions with relevant downtown stakeholders on potential greening and other design elements. I'll move approval of this item.
Councilmember Rainville has moved that committee's report. Is there any comments or questions? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say thank you to Councilmember Goodman and Rainville for bringing this forward. You know, this isn't a decision on whether to turn this into a pedestrian mall or not. This is really exploration of it. But looking back over my 10 years on the council, this is one of the few votes that I do regret was in the approval of the original Nicollet Mall layout, that this wasn't really explored as an option. It wasn't really, as far as I could tell at least, and that we just kind of continued with the status quo, yet this is such an integral part of making an active, lively, safe, vibrant downtown area, and really you see the value of it when you go to other cities that have these malls. And so I really appreciate the leadership on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Chavez.
Council President Jenkins, I'll be supporting this legislative directive today, but I would just ask that whenever any action is taken here, that we don't treat our unhoused neighbors in this area different than folks that are going to be pedestrians walking in Nicollet Mall. And I hope that when this decision comes to this body, that we all work together to make sure that it is an equitable thing that moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shevtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vita.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries. That report is adopted. Next is our Policy Government Oversight Committee. The report will be presented by the chair, Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam President. The Policy and Government Oversight Committee is bringing forward 22 items for approval and one item to be forwarded with that has been forwarded with no recommendation. One is passage of a resolution for the third quarter donations reports. 2 is passage of a resolution for gift acceptance for the local public health association for travel expenses, including registration and lodging. Items 3, 4, and 4 are also gift acceptances for travel expenses. 5 is authorizing a collective bargaining agreement with IBEW Local 292. 6 is accepting a rebid for streetlight installation project. 7 is accepting a bid for demolition and debris removal at the Kmart site. 8 is accepting a bid for property maintenance services. 9 is accepting a bid for pavement profiling and rental of roto milling services. 10 is accepting a bid for water and sewer service relocation. 11 is accepting a bid for concrete sidewalks, curb, and ADA ped ramps. 12 is authorizing a contract with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for engineering and design services for the First Avenue North Street reconstruction project. 13 is authorizing a contract with Toltz King Duval Anderson Associates for engineering and design services for the Cedar Lake Road Bridge over BNSF Railroad project. 14 is authorizing a contract with Accenture LLP for data management services. 15 is authorizing a contract with Hennepin Healthcare System, Inc. for fire emergency medical device education and training. 16 is authorizing a contract amendment with Kimley Horn and Associates, Inc. for engineering and design services for Hennepin Avenue South Street reconstruction. 17 is a contract amendment with Rosedale Chevrolet LLC for General Motors OEM parts and services. 18 is authorizing a contract amendment with Clearwater Analytics LLC for various investment services. 19 is authorizing a contract amendment with Everlaw Inc. for e-discovery and redaction software. 20 is consenting to a lease agreement with United States Army Corps of Engineers and Friends of the Falls for the ancillary lands around the Upper St. Anthony Lock and Dam. 21 is approving a legal settlement, City of Minneapolis versus Leo A. Daly and Ice Builders v. Golden Industrial Refrigeration LLC, Stantec Consulting Services, Generator Studio LLC. We're actually getting money for that, so I think that should be noted for the public, which is a rare occurrence for these legal settlements. 22 is authorizing a contract with Horseman Inc. for horse birding services, and that was the item that was forwarded with no recommendation. And item 23 is authorizing contracts to establish a pool for immigration legal services providers offering free immigration legal services to city residents. And so with that, I'll move items 1 through 21 and 23 for approval.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, Councilmember?
I am going to move items 1 through 21 and item 23 for approval, and then that'll leave us with still item 22 to take up.
So you're pulling item number 2?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Ellison has moved the committee report with the exception of item number 22 for a separate consideration. And I see in queue, Councilmember Vital.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to say that I would like to move item 22 for the separate vote.
So you're seconding Councilmember?
He didn't move it.
Madam
I
President.
think after we take up this, Councilmember Vital is saying she will move item 2 for approval, item 22 for approval.
Correct. Thank you.
All righty. Wonderful. Thank you. So, any discussions on items 1 through 21 and or 23? Seeing none, I put myself in queue on item number 7, the bid for demolition on the Kmart site. As many of you know, there was an unfortunate fire at the site, which prompted immediate demolition so that the remaining structure does not present any harmful realities for the surrounding community. And so that building will be coming down much sooner than anticipated, which is a positive development for a unfortunate situation that happened. Seeing no further discussion, clerk, please call the roll on items 1 through 21 and 23.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vital.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries. And lastly, we will take up item number 22. And Chair will recognize Councilmember Vital.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move item 22, the contract with Horseman Inc. for horse boarding services.
Is there a second? Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be voting no on this item, but I'm not whipping votes here. I'm just wanted to say, we had a good discussion. We had a presentation, and it is really difficult because I'm of two minds when I see this item come forward. On one hand, it is undeniable to see the horses out in community, and to sort of not be moved by that in some way. They're very beautiful animals. My dog is often described as a horse, and so I'm partial. But I also think that this is an item that has come up before in previous councils. We're the last area that still has mounted patrol. It's not the most expensive item, but it's also not an inexpensive item. And I think that it's worth us long term considering whether this service isn't a little bit antiquated as a way of facilitating public safety, and I know that there are colleagues of mine who strongly disagree, and I respect that viewpoint as well, having sat through the presentation. But I just wanted to let the council know kind of what the thinking was. I think as far the flip side is, to the extent that we have this service, we do have a responsibility to house these horses, and so those are kind of my two minds on this item, and wanted to explain that and let the council know what the committee's discussion involved. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellison. Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Councilmember Ellison, for sharing some of the kind of differing perspectives that were highlighted during the presentation on this item, where we also learned that we're the only ones in the state right now that has continued a mounted patrol. And outside of the state fair, via a buyback program, no other external services really utilize this component of our public safety system. So it did beg to differ. Why are we continuing with this? It's great if the state fair wants to proceed. Maybe they can develop their own mounted patrol. But yeah, there was lots of interesting information around who is actually utilizing this, how this model has been expanded or decreased across the state. And also really not a lot of information outside of qualitative data of, kids at schools being able to touch horses for the first time, of how this actually is contributing to the benefit of our residents and experiencing the newer directions of public safety that we're trying to transition into. So I just wanted to also contribute that to the discussion points that we had during the POGA presentation on this item, and also why I won't be supporting it today.
Thank you. Councilmember Goodman.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate Councilmember Ellison's arguments, and I do think his dog looks a little bit like a mini horse. Many of you know I serve on the Minnesota Racing Commission. I'm involved in racehorse rescue and racehorse rehoming. I've done quite a bit of work with horses over the past at least 15 years. This is a contract about feeding and housing horses. If the future council wants to have a conversation about whether or not the mounted patrol is something that makes sense within the city's tool of public safety services, that's a totally different discussion. But for right now, we own these horses. We need to feed them, and they need to have somewhere to live. And not approving this contract would create a scenario where we would have these horses and we wouldn't have anywhere for them to stay. We wouldn't have any feed for them. Feed is very expensive this year. That's another thing I want to point out. There is a shortage of hay as a result of the drought, and so it's becoming expensive to keep horses in various different places. I will also note I made it to 2 of the 3 open houses for police precincts in the ward that I represent, and in all of them, the horses were there, and they were the biggest draw for children. Perhaps next to getting to ride on a fire truck. That was probably the biggest thing. But the next biggest thing was being able to see, pet, and interact with the horse. And I think if we're talking about alternatives to community safety, and things that actually bring people towards those working in MPD instead of away from them, the Mounted Patrol is an excellent ambassador. To be fair, we also have police dogs, and no one gets to pet or visit with those dogs because those dogs are working dogs that are not like your average pet. These horses actually provide a service beyond the police dogs because they are acting as ambassadors for the department, and I have seen a lot of great things happen with them. I also support the Mounted Patrol downtown. It's a de-escalation tactic often. But ultimately, I wanted to note it's a fair conversation to have about whether or not we're going to have the mounted patrol as part of our MPD. But this is a contract to feed and house horses right now. And if it fails, I worry about what would happen to these horses. They're not horses people can just take home, like a dog put out in their backyard, and they can stay there till we figure it out. We need a place for them to live. We need to be able to feed them. It's our responsibility at this moment. I would urge us to just live up to that.
Thank you, Councilmember Goodman. The chair will recognize that Councilmember Ellison is in queue, but I believe for Councilmember Osmond.
Thank you, Madam President. My experience with the horses, this year they came to Lure Earth community with the chief and inspector, and really brought a lot of crowds and kids that had never seen the horses. I actually like the idea of having our police officers on horses that is less, more welcoming to the community. And if we can do that, that service is outside downtown. Also, it will be super helpful, and I think it will work. We're trying to build that relationship with the community, and this might be one way to make that happen. So I will be supporting this item.
Thank you, Councilmember Osmond. There was a NPR story yesterday that they are including horses now in their. That the Mayo Clinic is including horses in their animal therapy program. And so these animals do provide some therapeutic relief for families experiencing healthcare challenges, etc. They are an alternative to some of our other actions, and so consequently, we own them, as Councilmember Goodman stated, and we do need to feed them. So, Councilmember Payne.
Thank you, Madam President. I was just reflecting on some of those images from the border when we had some horse-mounted patrols catching Haitians trying to cross the border. It's pretty dark and bleak imagery. I think we would all agree on that. And I think that if we want to have some therapy animals as part of our public safety system, we should certainly consider that. I would suggest, there's a lot of discussion about recruiting and what kind of role this horses can act as ambassadors, but on a dollar-for-dollar basis, could we increase the pay for police officers with that money? Could we use that for bonuses? Could we use that for advertising to recruit people? With the challenges that we have right now within our public safety system, this just seems like a very low priority to me. And if we don't approve this contract, I think the clear thing is that we would have to rehome these horses, and I think that wouldn't be a bad thing.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Nay.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Nay.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
No.
Councilmember Chavez.
No.
Councilmember Ellison.
No.
Councilmember Vito.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 8 ayes and 5 nays.
That carries, and that completes the Policy Government Oversight Committee report. And our next report is from our Public Health and Safety Committee, which will be presented by its chair, Councilmember Vito.
Thank you, Madam President. The Public Health and Safety Committee is bringing forward 4 items. Item 1 is accepting a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to address hate crimes. Item 2 is accepting a grant from the Department of Energy for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. Item 3 is accepting a grant from the Public Health Regenerative Leadership Synergy for a 1-year leadership training program. And item 4 is the passage of a resolution adopting an ash tree treatment policy for the city. We have a revised resolution in front of us today, and so I'll move. The revised resolution is from Council Vice President Palmisano and Councilmember Ellison, and I'll move approval of these items, including the revised resolution for number 4.
Councilmember Vito has moved that committee's report, as well as the resolution by Council Vice President Palmisano and Councilmember Ellison relative to ash trees, I should say. And I see Councilmember Ellison in queue.
Thank you, Madam President. Just wanted to thank the committee and for the discussion, and thank Councilmember Palmisano for the additions to the resolution. I think that we met each other's intention and were able to execute on something I think that's going to land us in a really good spot. I have had some, I think while the vast majority of people who engaged me on this issue of the emerald ash borer kind of understand the issue, there was some concern about, the use of pesticides and stuff like that. I think if you read the resolution, you'll see that we are not urging anyone to use pesticides, but instead contextualizing, what the diminishing tree canopy is doing to places like North Minneapolis, and proposing solutions for how we can address this issue. And so, I just wanted to say that. And I also was able to do at least a little bit of preliminary research on, what the cost effectiveness of treating these trees is, which I think is really important, because that is a factor when we're thinking about these tree removals and the cost that we're asking people to take on. In the last year or so, there are about 84 pending assessments totaling $1.7 million. That's about over $20,000 per household when it comes to removing these trees. It can be an exorbitant cost to community members and who have to take on these costs for an infestation that they have nothing to do with. And so, by comparison, the average for treatment, obviously of a tree it's going to depend on size and age of the tree, but it costs about anywhere from $90 to $200 on a biannual basis, meaning every 2 years. That's what it costs to treat most of these ash trees, and so the cost savings is, I think, really important aspect as well as the environmental one. And so, last thing I'll say is I just wanted to thank a number of folks who gave their input to this resolution. Obviously you want to treat this with care. As somebody who cares about the environment, I know that all of us do. I really wanted to understand the community's voice, but also professional voices. And so we got a lot of support from the University of Minnesota Department of Forest Resources. Got a lot of support from Parks and Power, which is inclusive of Roxanne O'Brien and other folks who live on the north side. Other north side community members, Felicia Perry, Melissa Newman, Elder Amoke, also contributed to this. The Harrison Neighborhood Association, Tree Trust, Metro Bloom, the city of Minneapolis, our staff contributed to this heavily, so thank you so much for all your work on this and for understanding the issue and being a part of helping see our constituents through some of this cost burden, as well as diminished tree canopy and being a part of how we address that. We got feedback from the Department of Natural Resources at the state. We got feedback from the county, as well as our own forestry here. At the park board. So just wanted to thank all of our partners in this and again reiterate my thanks to staff, city staff, and Councilmember Palmisano. And with that, I hope all my colleagues can support this. Oh, one last thing. Folks might not remember, but a couple of weeks ago, we also got a pretty large grant, federal grant, to address this issue, not only with the removal of the trees, but also for the replacement of those trees. And so even though we are even though we are proposing different solutions for some of these trees, the reality that some of these trees are going to be beyond treatment is still there, and so they will be removed. And luckily, we got I believe $8 million to address that issue. So that's some context for my colleagues, and I hope to have your support on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Next in queue is Council Vice President Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate the context that was added here and the educational value of it. I know there is a lot of concern in our city. I know there's a lot of concern in community, and that has moved to different parts of our city. Right now, it's really ravishing North Minneapolis. As a member of our Minneapolis Tree Advisory Commission, on behalf of us all, you've assigned me to that. This is an active discussion. So I appreciate the help of our city staff, Kelly Molman, Sydney Schaaf, and the continued efforts that are going to take our forestry department, including Director Ralph Sievert, for some very important additional plantings and replacement here. But I especially appreciated collaborating with you, Councilmember Ellison. I don't want to take anything away from this. This is your resolution. And now this fits in nicely with the pollinator resolution that we did in 2015, I think. And so thank you so much for being having an open door and being willing to collaborate here. You have done such an incredible amount of work on how we work on the ash trees in your district and beyond. And I hope we'll be able to move forward and have this be a really positive thing that ends up with a beautiful tree canopy over north. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Vice President. And seeing no further discussion, I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vita.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries, and that report is adopted. Finally, we have the report from the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee, and that report will be presented by the Vice Chair, Councilmember Chuktai.
Thank you, Madam President. The Public Works and Infrastructure Committee is bringing forward 11 items that it is recommending for approval. Item number 1 is approval for bonding assessment and areaway abandonment for the Hennepin Avenue South Street reconstruction project. Item number 2 is approving the annual levy of various Public Works Department special assessments. Item number 3 is approving an appropriation increase for water distribution improvements. Item number 4 is authorizing a right of entry agreement with the federal government to access the Columbia Heights water treatment property. Item number 5 is authorizing a utility easement agreement with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board for a storm sewer outfall within the Minnehaha Parkway Regional Trail. Item number 6 is authorizing a temporary construction agreement with the University of Minnesota for Bridge 9 repairs. Item number 7 is authorizing an agreement with Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway for storm drain infrastructure on BNSF property. Item number 8 is approving a series of actions relating to a grant acceptance, public infrastructure improvements, and project plan approval for the North Transfer Station Revitalization Project. Item number 9 is authorizing the submittal of a grant application to Metropolitan Council Environmental Services for sewer lateral repairs. Item number 10 is authorizing the designation of local funds as a match for a Minnesota deed grant for the Upper Harbor Terminal Public Infrastructure Street Reconstruction Project. And finally, item number 11 is authorizing Public Works to apply for and host an AmeriCorps member through the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's Green Corps program for the 2023-2024 program year. I'll move approval of all of these items.
Thank you. Council Member Chugtai has moved this committee's report for approval. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vitoff.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries, and that report is adopted. That completes the reports from our standing committees. The next order of business is the notice of ordinance introductions. There's one notice by Councilmember Wansley to amend Title IX, the Fire and Police Protection Code, to add provisions related to fees for use of city-owned resources by external entities. This notice is hereby given and no further action is required. Next, we have the introduction and referral calendar.
Sorry, Madam President, I was in queue.
Oh, my apologies, Council Member. Councilmember Wansley is in queue to speak to the ordinance at leave.
Yes.
Introduction.
Thank you. Just want to give some context on this. So this ordinance is related to off-duty police and ensuring that taxpayers are not continuing to subsidize off-duty work to the greatest degree possible. We have the legal authority to recoup the costs associated with using city resources related to off-duty work. I've worked with staff on what those fees could look like, but unfortunately, a lot of this work was put on pause this year due to significant staff turnover. But that being said, staff, my office, we feel confident that we are able to still get information needed next year to be able to make the deadline for a 2025 fee schedule. And there's no question that, we need to do a significant overhaul to our off-duty system. And this ordinance basically helps to support further transparency and accountability to, what that can look like. So just wanted to give some context behind what we're looking to do with this ordinance.
Thank you, Council Member. Next, we have the introduction and referral calendar. First, Council Member Rainville will be introducing and giving first reading to an ordinance amending the licensing code to add a new chapter entitled Window Cleaning to establish provisions related to licensing, business regulations, worker training requirements, and safety, which will be referred to the Business Inspection and Business Inspections, Housing, and Zoning Committee. Next, we have Council Members Johnson and Goodman, who will be introducing and giving first reading to an ordinance amending the licensing code to align the city's body art code more closely with the state body art code and to allow for more temporary tattooing or piercing events in a calendar year, which will be referred to the Biz Committee. Third, Councilmember Vitoff will be introducing and giving first reading to an ordinance amending the licensing code to amend provisions related to the pedicab operations and vehicle standards. That will also be referred to the Biz Committee. Fourth, Councilmember Wansley will be introducing and giving first reading to an ordinance amending the housing code to amend provisions related to pre-leasing of dwelling units in new rental construction, which will also be referred to the Biz Committee. Fifth, I will be introducing and giving first reading to an ordinance along with Councilmember Payne to amend the health code pertaining to high-risk sexual conduct to update language to reflect advances in preventative care and studies on community outbreak and to remove stigmatizing language, which will be referred to the Public Health and Safety Committee. 6, Councilmember Koski will be introducing and giving first reading to the subject matter of an ordinance amending the Stormwater Code related to operations with regard to coordination with the Park and Recreation Board, which will be referred to the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. 7, Councilmember Vitoff will be introducing and giving first reading to the subject matter of an ordinance amending the Streets and Sidewalks Code to add a new section related to parkway paving, repair, and reconstruction, which will be referred to the PWI committee. Finally, Councilmember Vital will be introducing and giving first reading to an ordinance amending the Planning and Development Code related to the number of neighborhood organization representative positions on the NRP Policy Board and the election system to fill those positions, which will be referred to the Public Health and Safety Committee. Are there any questions regarding these introductions? Are there any questions regarding these introductions? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vital.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries, and those ordinances are referred to the designated committees in the next cycle. Colleagues, we do have a request for a closed session today. Before we move to closed session, I would take up any announcements first. Do any of my council members have any announcements to share this morning? Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm resuming my role informally as the chair of elections and rules. Just to remind folks that we have an election coming up, and this is our last opportunity for announcements before the Tuesday's election. And so just want to let folks know that early voting is still going on. You can still go early vote in person. And I don't have the address in front of me, but I believe it's 980 East Hennepin. So it's just seared in there. And so folks can go early vote. Early voting will be available until 5 p.m. next Monday, November 6th. So, and that is when it will end. Obviously everybody knows, but I'll say it for the record. Next Tuesday, November 7th, polls will be open to welcome voters at 7 a.m. and they will remain open until 8 p.m. And so if folks need help or support finding their polling location, they can go to vote.minneapolismn.gov and find the polling locations. We did have some redistricting, and so while I think things are by and large the same, people should definitely check their polling locations so that they can make sure that they're at the right spot. And so lastly, election results will be reported on election night for first ranked choices. Anybody who reaches that maximum threshold will be sort of unofficially declared the winner until the final count. And so otherwise, the election teams will conduct rounds of tabulations for the next days to identify unofficial winners in races too close to decide on election night. So, yes. I think that's all I've got in terms of notes. But yes, we want to see folks voting. You know, obviously, we have a great track record in our city of turnout. We have a little bit of an odd election with only council on the ballot. I don't know the last time that's happened, if ever. And so, you know, the threat for, lack of enthusiasm is there, but I'm hopeful that our residents are ready to go to the polls as they always are. So that's all I got.
Madam President,
yes.
If with your indulgence on that same topic, I would be pleased to report to the council that thus far, as of last night, the city has served 12,130 voters. So while certainly not the highest turnout, that total turnout at this same point in time, so point by point, day by day, where we are today, we've already served more voters than we did in the 2017 municipal election when the mayor, the council, the park board, and the BET were all on the ballot. We're not quite to the same level we were in the last municipal election of 2021. And although 12,130 voters is a lot of people to process during the early voting day, it still is a small percentage of the total number of registered voters in the cities. And so obviously, as you just said, we still have 5 days of in-person early voting at the election Negotiations headquarters. People can bring back their ballots. There are lots of information and instructions on how people can get their ballot back to us before Election Day, and then all of our polling places, as you said, being open on Election Day, and encourage all of our voters to get out and participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, Madam President. I just put myself in queue to embarrass one of our colleagues. It is their birthday today, so if we want to sing here or just say hello to Councilmember Elliott Payne. But happy birthday. Look at him.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
I'm not singing.
Happy birthday to you.
And many more.
I did put myself in queue just to add on to Councilmember Ellison's very poignant and important announcement, and that is many of our disenfranchised members of our community have been re-enfranchised by our state legislature, and those who formerly incarcerated folks have now had their rights restored and can participate in local elections. And so we want to just make sure that those folks are aware and hopefully will participate in this great experiment we call democracy. And seeing no further announcements from my colleagues, we will now consider a request for a closed session, which is to receive a briefing on the collective bargaining agreement with the police officers unit as listed on the agenda. Before I close this meeting, I'll recognize the city attorney to provide a legal basis for the requested closed session.
Council President, council members, the next item on the agenda is consideration of strategy for labor negotiations involving the Police Officers Federation of Minneapolis. Consideration of negotiation strategies or discussion and review of labor negotiation proposals may be held in a closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 13D.03. In order to close the meeting to the public, a majority of the council must vote to close the meeting. In deciding whether to close a meeting for labor negotiation strategy, the council should weigh the right of the public to know what its government is doing against the need of the city to preserve the confidentiality of its labor negotiation strategy.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. With that, I'll move that our public meeting be closed as authorized under the provisions of the open meeting law, specifically Minnesota Statute Section 13D.03, for the purpose of discussing labor negotiations and strategies related to the collective bargaining agreement with the Police Officer Federation. May I have a second? Second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Wansley.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Councilmember Osman.
Aye.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Councilmember Koski.
Aye.
Councilmember Shugtai.
Aye.
Councilmember Chavez.
Aye.
Councilmember Ellison.
Aye.
Councilmember Vito.
Aye.
Councilmember Rainville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goodman.
Aye.
Vice President Palmisano.
Aye.
President Jenkins.
Aye.
There are 13 ayes.
That carries. We will now close the public portion of our meeting and convene in closed session. For the viewing public, I'll note that the broadcast of this meeting will continue. The council will reconvene in public after we've concluded the closed session. Thank you.